That's a first look at some of the stories that we'll be looking in further detail from about 6:30 onwards. But right now, Francis is standing by with the business news, and the big story continues, the Guptas, Oak Bay Investments, and you've got a special guest, Francis.
Indeed, Nazim Hawa from Oak Bay with us. First, to put this into context, shares in Oak Bay Resources and Energy, the listed company, fell by more than 16% on the JSE today. The company housing the mining assets of the controversial Gupta family that has been accused of trying to buy state officials, and those businesses have been dumped by several financial institutions recently. On Friday, Ajay and Atul Gupta resigned from director positions in Gupta-held firms. So did their business associate, President Jacob Zuma's son, Duduzane Zuma. Now, the Guptas allegedly, weekend reports saying that they had left South Africa. Ajay and Atul were seen boarding a flight to Dubai, where their younger brother Tony has been living. The CEO of Oak Bay, Nazim Hawa, says that is not correct. However, unions also now up in arms about potential job losses.
Reigns in the Gupta business empire following their sudden departure, reportedly to Dubai. The National Union of Mine Workers says it's received calls from management of the Gupta-owned Optimum coal mine in Mpumalanga province, warning them that workers there may not get paid this month because the company's bank accounts have been closed by banks.
The problem that we foresee as the National Union of Mine Workers is that some of the workers may not be able to get their salaries this month and going forward.
The Guptas also own a uranium mine in the Northwest Province. The future of the mine also looks uncertain. AMCU says it has braced itself for any eventuality.
We see that the company is liquidated. There should be a processes. If the company you are selling to another stakeholder, there should be a processes in terms of Labor Relations Act. And then if it's in terms of shutting down the company, there will be another guidelines through the Labor Relations Act, whether you retrench those workers and you leave the company. So there are processes that can be followed in order to address what those companies are facing currently.
The same applies to the Gupta's media businesses, television news station ANN7 and the New Age newspaper.
That ANN7 workers were not paid on time for a couple of months from now up until this date. And so we should not be feeling that there will be something major worse happening, because workers have been exploited there.
Guptas are yet to announce exactly what they plan to do with their South African businesses, but selling them looks like the more likely option. The CEO of Oak Bay Investments is reported to have said Standard Bank and Nedbank have now also notified the company that they will be cutting all ties with it by the end of next month. Mbongeni Muchwa, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, that CEO Nazim Hawa joins us now. Good evening to you, Nazim. Good evening. So let's start with the claims at the weekend. The Guptas are leaving South Africa for good. You say that's not true at all.
Well, Francis, let me start off by saying that I'm CEO for the business. I'm not CEO for the family. But certainly there's no indication that they've left the country. I'm not sure where that's come from, but perhaps part of the ongoing spreading of myths and rumors.
Have they told you that they will be back? You're saying you don't know, essentially.
Well, essentially, one of the sons is getting married. They've gone to a wedding.
Okay, so those mountains of suitcases reported, it's wedding garb.
I think we should ask the journalists who reported it.
Yeah. So you, as far as you know, these are essentially your employers, and they are coming back. They've given you no reason to think otherwise.
They've put blood, sweat and tears into this business. They've created a business over 20 years. They've created over 5,000 jobs currently. It will double over the next week as we close another acquisition. So they've created 10,000 jobs. They're in the business of creating jobs.
You say that you are not CEO for the family, but increasingly you are acting as a spokesperson for the family, for their business interests, for everything together. Why are they not speaking themselves then?
Well, you know, I've come to the interview today to talk about where we're going with the business. And, you know, primary in our minds right now is the job losses. You know, and that for us is the primary focus as a business. All businesses have shareholders, and shareholders move and do this and that. But you know, for us, the sadness is that 4 banks have decided to close our bank accounts, making it impossible to continue a business. So our focus in the business right now is about how we preserve those jobs.
Okay, let's look at the shareholding first, because we had a 16% drop on the JSE today. As I understand, Oak Bay, the resources company, was worth about 19 billion. So does that mean that more than 3 billion rand, or more than that, wiped out today?
Francis, you know, if you look at the history of the share, it has its ups and it has its downs. So it's not something we're going to panic about. We'll look at it in the next week, and we'll look at it in the next week, and it'll come back, I'm sure.
Something I don't understand is reportedly the Gupta family owns 93%, 80% through Oak Bay Investments that you had, additional holdings as well. So if we go down by 16%, does that mean that the family members are selling shares?
I'm not sure that that's the case. Again, I think that is something that I'm not aware of. Again, I came here to really talk about Oak Bay Investments, the business I run.
Okay, so that wouldn't concern you that perhaps the family is selling shares in Oak Bay?
Not at all. Not at
All
all.
right, so talking about the banks, apparently you are going to try and restore those relationships.
Francis, in South Africa today, we've got phenomenal unemployment. Last 20 years, we've built the business around creating jobs. If you look around our business, we have a history of job creation. It's not a first choice for us to shut down jobs. But, you know, without a bank account, we'll have no choice but to do so. So my primary goal in this week will be to try and engage with the banks, to convince them that the family has taken a significant step in getting out of any executive, any non-executive role. The family's taken a big step in distancing itself from the business.
But they still own the vast majority of the shares.
But that would be the case in most of corporate South Africa. That would be the case in any corporate you look at. I don't think we're unique in that regard. But you have CEOs and you have directors who have to play their fiduciary role to ensure that we always act in the best interest of the business.
Have the banks given you any claims of criminality, anything like that? Last I saw you commenting, you were saying they've only raised reputational damage.
Well, they've not even done that. They've really spoke about terms and conditions which allow them to take this step. They've never even used that. KPMG has spoken about association risk. But from our point of view, I want to look in the eye of each CEO of each of these banks, if I can get to them. And really
Has anyone got back to you, Jacques Cilliers? You asked
not.
for an explanation.
Certainly not. And we're going to appeal to each of those CEOs to really put South Africa and its people before anything else. Our workers are part of South Africa's people.
Nazim, do you understand the concern, though? We're talking about vast job losses, a huge concern in a country with 25% unemployment. But if any of the claims are true, that state officials are being bought, etc., that there's undue influence on the state, the economic implications of that are much, much bigger. It means ultimately people in position will be enriched at the expense of South Africans. Do you at least understand the alarm that South Africans are feeling?
I certainly understand that. But you know what I would urge the bank CEOs and South Africans as a whole is to really say, you know, reflect on our constitution, which says you are innocent until proven guilty. And then to say, so where have we been found guilty of any matter? We've put it on record that 1% of our business comes from state. 1%. That's the 2015 audited financials.
But that, to me, that is not the issue, because this looks like positioning for the future. So 1% last year, I think you have said, reflected in the financials. But we're talking about uranium mines that could get potential nuclear contracts, and coal mines that are already standing to get Eskom contracts. So this is futurely, you've got to admit, hugely beneficial.
Francis, I really want to challenge you on those facts, and I think it's good that you raise these matters with me. So let me respond to them.
Go ahead.
Let me deal with coal. Our first coal supply to Eskom happened in March 2015. We, at the moment, supply less than 1% of coal to Eskom, of Eskom's coal requirement. Less than 1%. When we close the Optimum transaction, and those coal contracts are in place at the moment, that will move to 5%. So we are still a little guppy in an ocean of sharks.
What about the
Let me
coal
deal
mine
with-
at Oortjies? Is that included
Which
in
one
this?
is that one?
I heard you were thinking of buying a coal mine in Oortjies.
So you're giving me news I'm not aware of.
Okay.
So maybe you can guide me which
Okay,
one
no,
that
that's-
is.
that
But
was
let me deal with uranium as
Sure.
well. We bought this mine in 2007. The whole question of nuclear build wasn't on the table at that point. It was owned by Uranium One. It was in care and maintenance. We've created close to 1,000 jobs there already. South Africa's nuclear build will take 20 years. Now, if there's a claim that in 2007 we saw this thing coming, we must be amazing business people. You should reward us for it. But the harsh reality is our life of mine is only 16 years. Nobody can sit in a mine for 20 years waiting for a build. So we have to look for other places to sell the uranium. So it's one of those myths that are trotted out as fact.
Why you have made conspiratorial claims? Why ABC Jonas, for instance? Why has he got it in for the Gupta family? Why would he make false claims?
I've never said that. All I've said is I read the Sunday Times. And
I'm just
after
saying, do you
seeing
have any motive why him, Fakey Mentor,
I think
the former
something-
head of the GCIS, why they would want to go after the family?
I think, 2 or 3 things I'd respond with. And the first one, I'll speak from a business point of view, is when I saw it as CEO in the Sunday Times, the Jonas claims. I did ask Mr. Ajay Gupta and Mr. Atul Gupta, who mentioned the story. It was subsequently proven that Mr. Atul Gupta was out of the country at that point. So I have no knowledge of that meeting. But both of them have denied that meeting. Again, you're making me stray into areas that I shouldn't be, because I really can talk about what I know.
I understand, and as a media person, like I said, you are being seen as a spokesperson, and maybe we should make a better effort to go to the Gupta brothers
I would love you to do that.
themselves. How close are you to some of these controversial interactions? In Zurich, a meeting claimed with the mining minister, Glencore, to hand over Optimum coal mine to Tegeta. Were you there?
No, I was not. I led the negotiating team. I never left the shores. The talks happened in Melrose Arch and at our office in Sandton to close that deal. A little known fact around that deal is that the talks broke down twice. We started talking in June last year. That was way before the mining minister was appointed, if I'm not mistaken. But since then, it broke down twice. If you read the business rescue practitioners, and they have a legal obligation to act in the best interest of Optimum. The announcement on closure was this was the best option for that mine. That was the announcement from their side. So I'm really not sure where that comes from, but I've been involved in every step of the negotiation. I led the negotiating team together with several of my executive colleagues.
As an employee, this is my final question to you, of the Gupta family, essentially. Have you been party to any shady dealings? How were you hired? Do these claims ring at all true for you, given your interactions with the family?
I'll tell you a wonderful anecdote. The Gupta family recruited me from independent newspapers. It was after I did a negotiation on behalf of Independent with them. And what they came to tell me now is that they wanted to hire me because no matter what happened, I stuck very strongly to the mandate of my then employers.
All right.
Our businesses are built on transparency, arm's length, third-party transactions. That's why I want to appeal to these banking CEOs. Look into your hearts. Think of these 7,500 families.
All right.
Don't make a cold decision just to put people out on the streets. Don't act on perceptions. I'm very happy to meet with each of them and for them to ask me any question they want on our business. But think of the 7,500 people that they may be putting on the street.
Thank you very much. Nazeem Hawa, the CEO of Oak Bay Investments there. Let's take a look now at how the markets performed today. That drop on Oak Bay, 16% overall.